When the Tennessee Titans draft Cam Ward, they must pair him with a dynamic receiver, even if it means trading up. I'll show you what that would look like on today's Mock Draft Monday edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay tuned for the Armada Player of the Week later in the show. On today's episode, we're doing a 7-round mock draft. It is Mock Draft Monday, and I'm going to show you what it would look like if the Tennessee Titans traded up for one of the top 4 wide receivers in the NFL draft. Before we dive into it, do want to thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. You're not going to beat that anywhere else. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you aren't an everydayer, you need to be one because the draft is less than 2 weeks away. We're in the middle of the 2025 Locked On Titans NFL Draft Preview Series, going over quarterback, going over running back, going over wide receiver, tight end. We're going to hit offensive line tomorrow. We're going to get defensive line the next day. We're going to get edge. We're going to get linebacker, the defensive backfield. You want to get up to date and as informed as possible before the NFL draft takes place next Thursday. You're going to do it here with the Locked On Titans podcast. So again, make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. But with that being said, there were some big news items in the NFL over the weekend. The Cleveland Browns signed Joe Flacco back, but more importantly, the New Orleans Saints get news that Derek Carr is in jeopardy of missing the 2025 NFL season with a shoulder injury. And of course, immediately people went to, okay, well, the Saints don't have a quarterback, so what could they do? They had sent a whole contingent to Cam Ward's pro day, so people know that there's interest there. But here's the reality. If the Saints wanted to trade up from 9-1, and Diana Rossini from The Athletic reported this on Sunday morning, it would take a historic trade offer. Like, that's what the Titans have said behind the scenes. It would take a historic trade offer to move us off of Cam Ward. And you think historic, that means it would be even more lucrative than what the Panthers paid to the Chicago Bears to move up to get Bryce Young. It would be even more expensive than that. So with that in mind, I just don't think it's one of those things where it's like, hey, I'll take an offer. But deep down inside, that realistically, the other person cannot offer something that would make you move. Now, a move that I would take if the Saints were willing to give up 2025 number 9, their second rounder, their third rounder this year, and then a first rounder and a second rounder in next 2026 and 2027. If they want to give me that, then okay. All right. I will take your top 100 picks for the next 3 years and I'll move off and see what happens. But the reality is the Saints are never going to offer that. That's not what's being offered here. The Titans are never going to get anywhere close to like the best trade return in the history of the NFL. They're just not going to get that. So we could talk about what people would want to do, what it would take, but the reality is the Tennessee Titans will be selecting Cam Ward number 1 overall in less than 2 weeks. He is the franchise quarterback. He is going to be the guy going forward, and it's all about what the Titans do after that for me. Like, this draft starts at 35. And again, I know there are some people out there who just don't want to believe that, who just think things are still open. I'm just telling you, they're taking Cam Ward. So with that in mind, what do you do? Well, I want to give a shout out to my guy, Zach Lyons, who pointed out over the last 5 drafts, when a quarterback goes first in the NFL draft, usually the team pairs them with another young wide receiver. So in 2020, it was Burrow and Higgins. In 2021, Trevor Lawrence was drafted and the Jags went out and signed Christian Kirk. Not exactly the same. But in 2022, the Steelers take Kenny Pickett and then they draft George Pickens. In 2023, Bryce Young, and then the Panthers take Jonathan Mingo. And then last year, 2024, Caleb Williams. And then they take Rome Odunze to go with him. So 5 years running now, we've seen teams make an active push to pair a wide receiver with their young quarterback so that they can grow together. Now, unless you're telling me that wide receiver move is James Prochet or Van Jefferson, which I don't think it is, that would lead me to believe that the Tennessee Titans may be aggressive here and getting a wide receiver fit to go with Cam Ward. Because look at the Tennessee Titans receiver group. You got Calvin Ridley at the top, but after that, Treylon Burks, the ghost of Treylon Burks, as I like to say, Van Jefferson, James Prochet, Bryce Oliver, Jaquan Jackson. That might be the worst wide receiver group in the NFL. Like, that is despicably bad. Bad. So it may be, and we've seen the Titans add Draymond Jones. We've seen the Titans add Lorenzo Carter. They already have a veteran in Arden Key. Jalen Harrell is a 7th rounder out of Michigan last year, stepped up. Ali Gay did nice things. Like, the Tennessee Titans realistically do have at least 5 edge rushers that they feel comfortable giving snaps to. You would like that to get better, but the point is, don't be shocked if the Tennessee Titans make some kind of aggressive maneuver to get a wide receiver, whether that be trading up back into the first round to get one of the top tier guys that we talked about on Thursday's episode, whether that be trading back and taking 2 wide receivers back to back. Like, that would be an aggressive mover, or 2 out of the top 4 picks wide receivers. Don't be surprised if the Titans do something that aggressive. So when I say that, the Titans sit at pick 35 after having Cam Ward number 1 overall. And in my mock draft on Pro Football Focus's mock draft simulator, pick number 32 came to the Philadelphia Eagles, and Luther Burden was still on the board. Emeka Egbuka, who I would do everything I say right now about Luther Burden, I would do about Emeka Egbuka as well. I love Egbuka. Outside of Tetairoa McMillan, who I think should go top 10, Egbuka and Burden are by far my top wide receivers in this class. So they're on the board at 32, and I sit at 35, and I'm sorry, but I simply cannot pass on the opportunity to get one of the top tier, top 4 wide receivers in this draft class and pair him with my quarterback who needs that support. Also, we paid Dan Moore. We paid Kevin Zeitler. I have attacked the offensive line enough. I've added multiple free agents and have a veteran at edge. I would love to get a first-round edge and a first-round wide receiver to pair with my first-round quarterback, but that's just not coming. It's just not coming. So with Luther Burden on the board at pick number 32, the Philadelphia Eagles, I call Howie Roseman, and I say, Howie, last year, the Carolina Panthers gave pick number 33 and pick number 141 for pick number 32 and pick 200 to move up to number 32 with the Buffalo Bills. So they moved up 1 pick, and they gave up 60 picks of value. Right? So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to give you 35, and I'm going to give you 141, which is exactly what the Panthers gave last year, 33 and 141. I'm going to give you 35 and 141, and I don't want 200. You don't have to give me any additional pick. Just give me 32 for 35 and 141. If you look at the Fitzgerald Spielberger charts, that's 550 to 590. If you or 585 and a half plus 590. If you look at the Rich Hill charts, I think it's like 120 to 110 or something like that. So historical precedent shows that that's a fair trade. The trade value charts show that that's a fair trade, whatever you want to call it. Philadelphia doesn't need to overextend themselves. They can drop back 3 picks, still get somebody they want, and collect additional capital later in the draft to move around. It's a perfect deal for both sides. The Titans move up. They get Luther Burden. They pair him with Cam Ward. And look, there were other options out here still on the board. Alec Ayomanor, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, Jack Besh, Savion Williams, Trey Harris, Isaiah Bond. Like, there were guys still on the board, but I'm sorry, Luther Burden is a tier above all of those guys. Again, we've seen the historical precedent of teams wanting to pair their rookie quarterback with a top-tier receiver or with a receiver he can grow with. We see the historical precedent of the trade. If Luther Burden or Emeka Egbuka were to fall that far down into 30, 31, 32, I do think that the Tennessee Titans would give up one of their day 3 picks and move up to make sure they secured that level of player, even if it means that they don't get to pick again until 103, because now you have 2 first-round talents who can grow together, and you may have fixture offense for a decade. Today's episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV's Stick 4K device. Did you know that Fire TV is also an Xbox? You can turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab a paired controller, subscribe, or sign into your Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. You can dive into hundreds of premium titles from one of my favorites, EA Sports College Football 25, or Call of Duty Black Ops 6, or Avowed, as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV with 4K streaming. Watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. I love it because, like, instead of bringing a whole gaming console, I bring a Amazon Fire TV stick, and I still get Xbox, and I still get all the different subscription packages that I have and everything. So rather than lugging around a big console, I can bring my Fire TV stick. But head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Titans fans, let's continue today's Mock Draft Monday edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We looked at, obviously the Cam Ward decision and then needing to pair him with a wide receiver. And I love the group that I came out with, and giving up 35 and 141 to move up to 32. It's hard to complain about that. But now we got to move forward, and we got to build the rest of the team. And we're not going to have a pick until 103. So I waited it out, and I waited it out, and I waited it out, and I got to 103. And there were a ton of good options still available for me that I think could make a ton of sense. Now, in my mind, I would love to stack the trenches. I would love to, get more O-line help and D-line help and all of that. But I also have to play the board here. So I'm looking, and there are wide receivers still available, like Isaac Tesla, Tez Johnson, Torrey Horton, Pat Bryant, who I like a lot. But there are some guys on the O-line available. Charles Grant, who's an offensive tackle that the Tennessee Titans have visited with out of William and Mary. Athletic guy who needs some refinement, but with Dan Moore and J.C. Latham, he wouldn't have to start right away. I think if he's available at 103, that could be an absolute pick for the Tennessee Titans. Jalen Rivers out of Miami, maybe you bring him in. He could be a long-term guard for you. Some people may see him at offensive tackle. I think kicking into right guard makes sense for the Tennessee Titans. Miles Frazier is a guy who I'm very interested in out of LSU, who I think could be a good option for the Titans on day 3 of the draft as an interior offensive line prospect with versatility to play outside at right tackle as well. But at the end of the day, the Titans do need an edge. And I think the edge talent is dwindling. Ashton Gillette out of Louisville, Savion Jones out of LSU, and then ultimately where I went with pick number 103. And I don't know if this guy would even make it to 103 because of the potential that he brings to the table, but it's someone that I've liked throughout the process. It's Femi Oladejo out of UCLA. Look, this guy's 6'3", 250 pounds, 33.5-inch arms, great length. He's got good size. The Titans want bigger edge rushers, but I don't think it would be insane to put another 10 pounds on Femi Oladejo, to put another 15 pounds of muscle on Femi Oladejo. If he was 6'3", 262 pounds with 33.5-inch arms, he has the length, the bulk, and the size to set that physical edge. I think it would be a perfect fit. And Femi is a former off-ball linebacker. He played traditional inside linebacker at UCLA for his first couple of years, or in college for his first couple of years. And then last year was the first time that he actually got an opportunity to get out on the edge. And he still, even then, wasn't a full-time edge. I mean, he was a full-time edge rusher, but he still didn't get quite as much experience there as you would hope. So you look at that and say, all right, this is a guy who most likely will be a better player in the NFL than he was in college. Sturdy frame. He's not thin. He's not small. We want to put more mass on him and get him heavier and stronger, but he's already not small, and that's what makes me think he can put that weight on. The length, I already talked about. The ability to hold off blockers, the ability to win with a long arm and pass rush. It gives you so much opportunity when you have that length on the outside. He is explosive. He's an explosive athlete with strong pop in his hands. I always talk about my guy Rex. We had a long conversation one time about hand pop and power and what it actually means. Like, the power in your hands is how you can jolt people, how you can shock people when you get your hands on them. Like, Dan Moore does not have strong hands, the Titans' new left tackle that they just signed. His punch, when he goes to shot guys in the chest with his punch in pass protection, it just doesn't have great strength, and guys can get through his arms. He can't hold them off because he just doesn't have great strength, and he doesn't have strong hands, a good pop in his hands. You know what I mean? Well, Femi does have good, violent pop in hands, okay? So you can take that and you can mold that. And if you can get him with a cross chop move consistently, and you can add in a rip move, and then maybe a little bit of inside counter, which we've seen a little examples of. He can shed guys because of his length. He can shoot gaps because of his explosiveness. And because he was a traditional off-ball linebacker for the majority of college, he can drop back in coverage, which works perfect in the Denard Wilson zone blitz system, where he simulates pressure from all over the place and then drops different people out. So it can work perfect. Look, again, former off-ball linebacker, so he is inexperienced at the edge position. You would have to refine him as a prospect with his moves and his hand usage and all the technical aspects of playing that position. But what you have to mold from at pick 103, when the Titans have that sort of need at edge, simply can't pass up on Femi Oladipo right there, despite some of the other options on the board. But then we drop down to pick number 120, and I'm going to double down, folks. I'm doubling down here. That's my motto right now. I am doubling down at the biggest positions of need for the Titans. There were people on the board that made sense at other spots, but I went back to wide receiver. And look, we get Luther Burden, who Luther Burden is going to be a slot wide receiver early on. I'm not saying that he's only a slot wide receiver. I think Luther Burden could eventually take over for Calvin Ridley as the Titans' primary Z receiver. Remember, your X is like your big physical guy. Think Calvin Johnson, big physical, on the line of scrimmage, isolated, away from the trips, press coverage, one-on-one with a corner, and you got to physically win. Think T. Higgins, big physical, DK Metcalf, big physical prototypical X. A.J. Brown was an X receiver. And then you got to think of your Z receiver. Like for Cincinnati, that's Jamar Chase. He's off the line of scrimmage. He comes in motion, more of the crossing routes. You're looking to create openings for that player so that they can get the ball and make plays. That's Calvin Ridley. And then you have your slot wide receiver, which obviously, as you guys know, is your slot guy. I don't need to, break down exactly how that works. Tyler Boyd is a big version of a slot. Wes Welker is a small version of a slot. Comes in different patterns. You have, speed slot guys that can get vertical, and then you have the quicker guys that are underneath. You guys know what a slot guy is. So if you have Luther Burden at slot, and you have Calvin Ridley, who is a prototypical Z receiver, well, then you need an X receiver. So I went with Pat Bryant from Illinois, a guy who I really like. 6'2", 204 pounds. So he may be slim. He may be thin because he's so tall, but he's 200 pounds. So we put a little bit of more weight on him, he should be fine. And if we're talking about wide receivers in the 160-pound range playing in the NFL, then a guy 200 pounds, 6'2", can play in the NFL. But I think he would be a guy to push Treylon Burks. So if you have Oliver and Ridley at Z, you have Jaquan Jackson and James Prochet and Luther Burden in the slot. You have Van Jefferson, Pat Bryant, and Treylon Burks trying to do the X wide receiver thing. Then you have good competition whether Treylon Burks is involved or not. So Pat Bryant is great at tracking the deep ball, which I think is something that Cam Ward is going to need help with. He's going to need guys who are good trackers of the football. The guys in Miami weren't necessarily that. Restrepo is, but and Cam Ward does struggle with deep outside passes. I went over it in my scouting report video on him last week. So Pat Bryant's a great tracker of the deep ball. He runs great deep routes. Cam Ward really good on posts and corner routes. so can take advantage there. He's a good route runner for a guy at 6'2", catches the ball all the time. He doesn't have any drop problems. He is a willing and good run blocker as well, so he brings a lot to the table. He just doesn't have any elite or dynamic physical traits. He doesn't have great deep speed. He doesn't have great burst off the line of scrimmage. He's not super sudden or explosive. His short routes are a little bit clunky because he doesn't have that suddenness and that quickness, but we're talking about a physical X who can run good deep routes, catch the ball with good hands, track deep passes. Like if you have him, Pat Bryant at X, Luther Burden in the slot, Calvin Ridley in the Z, like we have a decent wide receiver core happening here. And we can at least work with that. So Pat Bryant out of Illinois, my pick at 120. But again, I'm doubling down again to start the last 3 picks of this mock draft. It's time to get another edge rusher, folks. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Nissan. And the Armada Player of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, we're taking a look at a draft prospect, and I'm picking one guy that stands apart, a guy that I believe showcased the strength and power needed to push the team forward as we look ahead to the next season. And this week's Armada clear-cut Player of the Week is Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. So I think Egbuka is probably the Titans' favorite realistic option late in the draft. He's big, physical. Imagine a first-round talent version of Tyler Boyd. Like, he's heavy duty. He's rugged. He can conquer the road ahead with capability and confidence. Emeka Egbuka allows the Titans to dream big and go big, just like the Nissan Armada. It's clear that my player of the week is out here ready to conquer that road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the Nissan Armada or any of the outstanding vehicles that Nissan offers, like the Armada, the Rogue, the Pathfinder. Go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Titans fans, let's cap off today's 7-round mock draft. It's a Mock Draft Monday edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked about Cam Ward at number 1 and why it would take way too much to trade up for him. It's not happening. Then we did a realistic trade up back into the first round to grab Luther Burden. We had Femi Oladejo on the edge at 103. We had Pat Bryant, a big physical wide receiver, to go with Luther Burden at 120. But now we got our final 3 picks. Because remember, we traded 141 to move up to get Luther Burden, a trade that I'm certainly willing to make. But regardless, we got 3 picks left, all here in the back of the 6th round, 167, which I think is late 5th, 178, 188. So we get to 167. And again, I'm doubling down again. I'm going back to the edge. And like I did with wide receiver, I went Luther Burden, who's more of a slot guy. And then I went Pat Bryant, who's kind of a physical X on the outside guy. Well, I went with Femi Oladejo, who is 250, 6'3", great speed and explosiveness, great length. But now I want to pair that with a big physical edge, which is what I think the Titans prefer. And I went with Jaw Joyner out of Minnesota. 6'5", 265 pounds. So again, think about Lorenzo Carter. Lorenzo Carter, 6'5", 265 pounds. What's Draymond Jones? 6'3", 260 pounds. Femi Oladejo, 6'3", 250. Add 10 pounds of muscle over the next 2 years. Jaw Joyner, 6'5", 265. Lorenzo Carter. I am looking to replace those players. Now, Femi doesn't play like Draymond Jones. Okay, so don't mistake. I'm just saying size-wise, they meet the threshold of what the Tennessee Titans want on the edge going forward. But Jaw Joyner is a guy who you would definitely have to develop as a pass rusher. Like, he's got to refine his skill set. He's got to refine his move, his hand placement, looking in the backfield, understanding what he's seeing. But he has great length and just great traits. Okay, he's explosive. He has power. He has length. You can mold that into a valuable edge rusher. So I'm doubling down. Again, I'm taking 2 edge rushers. I'm taking 2 wide receivers. And I'm saying I'm going to hammer these positions that I need desperately right now. And then next year, I might take another one at each of those spots because they're 2 of the top 5 most important spots. And we got to have them. We got to have them. So 2 edges, 2 wide receivers, Cam Ward. Now we move to some other options. And hey, look, there's no way I'm leaving this draft without some offensive line help. There's no way, especially on the interior where you have a 35-year-old starting right guard. You have a 30-year-old center coming on, 28, 29, coming off of a torn Achilles. I'm adding interior offensive line help. And I went with Miles Frazier, the interior offensive lineman out of LSU, 6'5", 320. Now, he played some offensive tackle in college, played mostly on the interior his final year, did play a little bit of right tackle late in the season, and played well. So I like Miles Frazier as Blake Hance competition, right? A 6'5" guy who's played a little tackle and played a little guard as well. Miles Frazier could be your long-term replacement for Kevin Zeitler, and he's a guy who has the versatility to play behind the guards this year, play behind the tackles this year if needed. Like, I would rather play Miles Frazier at offensive tackle than NPF or Jalen Duncan, you know? Like, I don't think either of those guys should be on the team this year. So if you get Miles Frazier in, you have Blake Hance. Say they bring in a guy like George Fant as a swing tackle or some other veteran swing tackle, Jedrick Wills, guy I've been interested in with a Bill Callahan connection, but clearly I don't think they like him. But we'll see. You never know. Could happen later in the summer. But I'm not leaving this draft without some offensive line help. And me personally, if I can get Miles Frazier at 178, a guy who I really like on day 3 for the Titans, him and Emory Jones are guys that I'm going to take those players. I just feel like other than wide receivers, some of these LSU players are not ready to go. They have like a ton of talent, but they're not like polished, like a Savion Jones is a guy in this range who I think could make some sense if the Titans want to go with a bigger edge rusher instead of Jaw Joyner. But anyways, I love Miles Frazier. So I really like the interior offensive line group. Like, there are some good options for guards, like peppered throughout, that the Titans will have an opportunity to get. And I'm going to talk about them tomorrow. We're going to start with interior offensive line because I think it's more likely the Titans make a surprise there than it would be at offensive tackle with the contract they just signed to Dan Moore. So we're talking offensive line draft preview tomorrow. But my final pick, I didn't go Ollie Gordon this time, guys. I'm a traitor, I know. But 188, I went Malachi Moore. I like Malachi Moore out of Alabama, man. 5'11", 200 pounds. He's smart. He's tough. He's physical. He was a team captain multiple years. He plays with a lot of passion. He really, truly cares about winning. All right. If I can get that guy with my last pick in the draft, he's a guy who could play deep safety, like cover 3, deep middle. He's a guy who could play half field, which cover 2, I think he could play in the Titans cover 4 scheme. Like, I really like Malachi Moore late in the draft. I really, really do. But with that being said, my full draft, you take Cam Ward number 1. You trade up from 35 to 32. You give up 141 to make that move. You take Luther Burden. Then at pick 103, you take Femi Oladejo on the edge. Pick 120, you take Pat Bryant, wide receiver out of Illinois. 167, you take Jaw Joyner out of Minnesota, the big physical edge rusher. Then 178, you take the interior offensive lineman out of LSU, Miles Frazier, and you take safety out of Alabama, Malachi Moore with 188. So I hit wide receiver and edge twice. You get Cam Ward. You add offensive line. You add safety. I like that draft. Now, we have the number 1 waiver claim. We hit undrafted free agency for a running back, for a tight end, for a linebacker. and a cornerback, and let's ride into next season. But let me know what you think about this mock draft less than 2 weeks away. But with that being said, that's going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.